Hello and welcome. I'm your host, Darshawn McAway. You're tuned in to wowpodcast.me. That's WOWPODCAST.me. And today we have a special guest. We have Mark Leslie. He's coming on to the show. He's going to talk to us about his books. Mark, how are you doing?
I'm doing amazing, Darshan. Thanks for having me on the show.
No problem, no problem. So let's get right into it. I know you have a ton of books. I remember looking at the email, you said you had over 30. So which books do you want to talk about today?
I think I'd like to talk about something that's really popular, especially this time of year. We just finished the Die Hard Christmas season, and I have a book of Die Hard trivia based on the movie as well. And the previous year, I did a trivia book about planes, trains, and automobiles. So I guess I'm really passionate about that because there's a lot of people who really enjoy sharing trivia tidbits about some of their favorite films. And I'm a child of I'm a child who was not so much of a child in the 80s. And the 80s nostalgia is pretty popular as we look back, 30, 35, 40 years ago were these movies that we so adored. And again, this is, prior to the internet.
So what's the inspiration behind these trivia books? Like why trivia books?
Well, you know what? I write horror, I write true ghost stories, I write all kinds of stuff, urban fantasy, thrillers, stuff like that. And I'm a book nerd. I've always been a book nerd. I've worked in the industry for a long time, and there's a scene in the movie Planes, Trains, and Automobiles with John Candy and Steve Martin, where you see the very first time you see John Candy, he's holding a book. And he looks over the book at LaGuardia Airport and he says to Steve Martin's character, "I know you, don't I?" I'm usually pretty good with names, but I'll be damned if I haven't forgotten yours. And the book was it was meant to be a pornographic novel in the screenplay. And the book is called The Canadian Mounted, which is obviously a cheeky nod. The prop people said, haha, John Candy's a Canadian author. He's reading a Canadian porn book. And I always wondered, wouldn't it be cool if the book became real? In my research for writing the book, I realized it was a book. There was a book called The Canadian Mounted, which is a porn novel that was written in the 80s, but I re-released it using the same image on the cover, the same title, but the subtitle is, a trivia guide to planes, trains, and automobiles. And in it, I include so many trivial tidbits of how John Hughes wrote the screenplay over the course of 3 days, and it's inspired by an actual trip, very similar trip. Well, he didn't have a companion like Del Griffith, where he got rerouted to Wichita when he was on his way to Chicago. So that inspired the desire to want to collect trivia tidbits and then just share them with other nerds like me who might really enjoy them.
So let's talk about this. I saw this in the email and it tripped me out. Typically, it's a family-friendly show, but if you have some kids around, have them cover their ears. 'Cause I'm about to say something that's not so family-friendly. The book, Yippee Ki-Yay, motherfucker. How did that come out, man?
Well, you know what? I did the Planes, Trains, and Automobiles book thinking, oh, there's probably gonna be about 30 other people in the world that are as nerdy as me who want it. And it was a huge hit. People would be sharing. Even just this morning, a friend of mine who was at the Atlanta airport shared a picture of himself at the airport peeking over the book. So I thought, I love the movie so much. I've watched it hundreds of times. Another movie I've watched and loved hundreds of times is Die Hard. And it celebrated its 35th anniversary in 2023, in July of 2023. And of course, that's the catchphrase that Bruce Willis, John McClane uses at the very end when he spoiler alert, when he shoots Hans Gruber. Well, he uses it earlier on a radio where he's teasing him or poking him, trolling him, let's say, and then they use that phrase in every single movie, and even in the Die Hard battery commercial. Although they bleeped that one out because it was meant for prime time and family safe. And so I just thought I'd put together, and I thought, why not use. If for the first movie I used an image that people who love the movie are going to recognize and know where it's from, it's like an insider joke. This is less of an insider joke because most people, even if they haven't watched the movie, they're familiar with the phrase. They would go, "Oh, I know where that's from. I'm a big Die Hard fan." And so collecting all kinds of trivial tidbits, reading interviews and watching all the special features that I can, buying a whole bunch of books as well that include articles about them was just, again, I just nerded out, collected all this stuff and thought, wouldn't it be fun to share that with other people? And And so I probably in the realm of, I'm probably going to do one a year now, just picking some of my favorite classics from the 80s and sharing my love and passion for them with other people who are just as excited about those films.
So how do you go about researching the behind the scenes? Like, what's that thought process? Like, and how long does it take you?
Um, I mean, I have never measured it in terms of hours, but I usually spend about 6 months in general, not like 6 full months, but I start by seeing if there's books or articles available of, with interviews with the director or anything like that, and collecting them, watching the special features, watching the movie with a notepad, and actually pausing. So it could take me 4 hours to watch a 2 hour movie or longer, where I'm pausing, making notes, even looking for bloopers. I will go and watch all of the special features, or even watch different specials where there's interviews with the various people involved. For example, for one of the next books I'm working on, which is National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, I found out that it was based on a short story that John Hughes had sold to National Lampoon magazine. So I'm in the process of trying to acquire the reprint rights so I can reprint the original short story that was adapted into the screenplay. So all of these things, I just collect them, I store them, put them in folders and notes, and then say, okay, now I'm going to do a chapter on, for example, these are, and I got a hold of the original screenplay from Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, and I leveraged that to say, oh, there's a whole subplot that was cut out of the movie. And here are some excerpts from the screenplay to prove that. Or this was the line, but John McClane delivered this other line, or the reason Hans Gruber, the scene with Hans and John McClane was based on the actor Alan Rickman fooling around behind the scenes doing an American accent, and then one of the scriptwriters went, "Oh my God, we can have them meet, and he can fake an American accent." And so that wasn't even part of the original screenplay. He was supposed to meet with one of the other terrorists upstairs, the Theo, the nerdy guy, the computer hacker guy. That was supposed to be the scene, but they rewrote it to be Hans, which was just amazing. So it's just so much fun to find these things and to put them in the book, maybe to help other people, for conversations around the dinner table, Thanksgiving or whatever. But it's lots of fun that I can put these things together and then just compile them in a single source where they can easily, it's a portable thing, or they can read it in ebook, etc.
So let me ask you this: what were you doing before you started writing books? Like, what was your job or your career?
Bookseller. Well, actually, I started writing books when I was 14, so a student. I guess it was a high school student. I I loved books. I loved reading. I sent my first story away, got it rejected at the age of 15, and then my very first short story was published in 1992. That's the year I graduated from university, and that's when I started working as a bookseller, because I thought, oh, I love books. I'm going to be in this industry. So I've worked in the book industry my entire life. And of course, that first story came out in 92. My first book didn't come out until 2004, but my entire life has been about the book industry and writing and sharing books with people. So it's very much my writing life, and well, when I worked full time, I worked in the book industry. They were very synonymous, right? It was very harmonious that I could be working in the industry that I basically was the most passionate about.
So let me ask you this: do you think about legacy, leaving something behind, or you just kind of just go where the wind blows you?
I think legacy is important to me. I know that I've read plenty of works from authors who are no longer with us, and they're still enjoyed to this day. And I am hopeful that some of the things that I've written, or some of the things that I've created and shared, can actually be enjoyed well beyond when I'm gone. And that's kind of the beauty and the power of books and storytelling, is that with storytelling, the origins were oral storytelling, sitting around a campfire, people telling those tales. But imagine that you can share a story, and whether it's on paper or ebook or audiobook or whatever format it is, that can be enjoyed. It's like time travel that can be enjoyed by somebody else in some other place at their own leisure. That's power, and that's magic. And so, yeah, definitely legacy is a part of that.
So let me ask you this: are you where you want to be in life, or you're on a different path? Like, Has your
Yeah.
life guided you to where you want to be, or are you like, oh, I'm a little off kilter a little bit?
You know what? That's a great question, and I am where I want to be, and of course, it doesn't mean I don't have goals where I want to be, but I'm definitely on the path of the things that I want to do. It was in 2018, after years and years and many books released, that I was finally starting to earn enough money that I didn't need a full-time day job in order to support myself. It wasn't that I was rich as a writer, but it meant that I didn't have to have that full-time income. And so I moved to part-time consulting, et cetera, still within the book industry, still within my legacy, but that allowed me more time to do what I'm most passionate about, which is writing and storytelling. And so, yeah, I'm lucky. And even when I was working book selling retail in the 90s and earlier, where I was working below the poverty line in terms of the income I was making in retail, I always loved what I did. I always enjoyed that magic of putting the right book in the right customer's hands. So even though I may not have been as comfortable in terms of the roof over my head and being able to afford the things, day to day life, I've always been happy. I've always enjoyed that, and I've always enjoyed writing and storytelling, and I feel so lucky and so privileged that I get to do this. That I get to wake up in the morning at 5 in the morning and get up and feed the animals, put on the coffee, and start my day, because my day is all about books and it's all about writing. And oh my goodness, I am such a lucky person.
So let me ask you this, since you're into trivia. Um, let's see, what's your icebreaker conversation when you're meeting people?
Oh, it just depends on the context of where I am, right? So if the context is within, Christmas, and for example, I can leverage, Die Hard as an example, because there's the big annual debate of whether or not it's a Christmas movie, and I can pull out the facts that, well, when you actually look at it, and this is based on the screenwriter of the movie Die Hard, if you actually compare White Christmas, which everyone would agree is a Christmas movie, with Die Hard, Die Hard actually has twice as many, if not more, elements that make it a Christmas movie more than the movie White Christmas. And then, that usually perks people's interest. And then I can share, well, for example, look at the soundtrack. There's only one Christmas song in White Christmas, but there's, 8 or 9 references to Christmas songs, if not actually in the soundtrack for Die Hard. The entire movie takes place on Christmas Eve. And White Christmas only, very like 20% of the movie takes place at Christmas time. So that's a fun one, because it gets people thinking about that debate: is Die Hard a Christmas movie because it's such an action thriller?
Um, let me ask you this question. Let's see if you know where this comes from. Have you
Okay.
ever danced with the devil in a pale moonlight? Do you know what movie that comes from?
Oh, that sounds familiar, but okay. No, what's that from?
That's from Batman, the Joker.
Oh,
When
the Joker. Okay. Oh,
Yeah. Have you ever danced with the devil in a pale moonlight?
oh
I love that
man.
quote, man. I never understood it until I got older, because when I saw Batman, I was a kid, and I
Yeah.
always loved that part. And then I started realizing, I was like, you know what? The moon is kind of pale, and dancing around with the devil, but nobody dances with well,
And
maybe
was
some
that
people.
the Jack Nicholson
Yeah, Jack Nicholson. Yeah,
the
yeah,
Joker? Yeah. Wow. I haven't seen that one in a long time.
yeah.
So many other
That's a
versions of the
classic,
Joker.
classic,
Yeah.
absolute classic. So let's go ahead and tell everybody where they can find you on social media and what events that you have coming up.
Yeah, of course. You can find me at markleslie.ca. There's links to my social media, what used to be known as Twitter, Instagram, YouTube channel as well. I'm going to be in Colorado Springs in February at Superstars Writing Seminars, where I will be doing talks on the business of writing and publishing. And then in May in Toronto, and close to where I am in Ontario, Canada, I'm going to be at the Indie Author Conference, May 4th and 5th, among other great conferences throughout the year.
Absolutely. You guys go check out the Canadian Mounted and Yippee Ki-Yay, motherfucker. Thank you so much, Mark Leslie, for joining Wild Podcast.me. It's been a pleasure getting to know you, man, and I wish you so much success in life. And please, by all means, come on back anytime you want to. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thanks so much, Darshawn. It was great chatting with you.
All right, man. Have a good one.